Hey. So fairly recently, aka in these YouTuber terms, 7 or 8 months ago, a new FNAF game released, Help Wanted 2. Well, I started playing it recently and I gotta say, so far it's incredible. It's really fun with a lot of creative and unique minigames. Like finally, I can work a part-time job in FNAF. Wait, never mind, that's like the entire point of the series. Well anyway, thinking about Help Wanted 2 got me to think back to the first game, Help Wanted 1. And that's when I realized, oh, I don't like this game very much. Which is strange because looking at fan reception, it's mostly positive. Like, often considered the best FNAF game ever made positive. I thought this was strange until I remembered, oh yeah, I played this in flat mode. For those who don't know, flat mode is the non-VR version that came with the game. It's just a way for people to play the game that don't have a VR headset. So what, it's just Help Wanted, right? Well, not exactly. While it is kind of the same game, there are many differences that make this version infinitely worse. And today, I plan to rip into this game and say why I consider it to be the worst FNAF game. Except FNAF 4, but I couldn't really call this video the second worst FNAF game. That doesn't roll off the tongue as nicely. Now, I don't really like the VR version of Help Wanted either, so this will kind of double as a review of Help Wanted in general, but my focus is going to be on the flat mode, since that's what I 100%ed the game on. I'll be going in order, so starting with FNAF 1, then FNAF 2, FNAF 3, Dark Rooms, Parts and Service, Vent Repair, Night Terrors, and ending with Pizza Party. Anyway, enough of this intro. You know what you came here for. Here's why I don't really like Help Wanted, or its flat mode. Starting off with FNAF 1, honestly, this is kind of a weird one to start with because it's probably the one I like the most. It's by far the most faithful conversion, and also the most fun one. It's pretty much exactly FNAF 1. We got the doors, the lights, cameras, everything. Literally, the only thing I think has changed here is how the cameras work. Instead of pulling it up to cover your entire face like a lunatic, you now always have them on in front of you. This also changes Foxy's mechanic, since in the original FNAF 1 he was stopped by general camera usage, where here he's stopped by you looking at his specific camera. But besides that, you're playing FNAF 1 but in VR, which is a really cool concept. I mean, Markiplier in his very first FNAF episode said that he wished the game was VR, so here you go. It's kind of hard to talk about this one because, I mean, how do you review what is essentially a perfect recreation? I guess I could complain about the buttons. The doors and lights are so far away that you have to have a really wide area to play this game in VR, which I just simply don't have, so I was only able to beat up to Night 4 in VR. The others were too hard, and when it takes like 3 seconds for me to close a door, it's not exactly fair. The door lights are also kind of useless. Even with low brightness settings, I was still able to tell when they were at my door. I guess it's good for checking if they're still there, but that definitely makes power management easier. But yeah, besides that, good job, Steel Wool. You made a competent version of what is probably the most competent FNAF game. Let's move on to FNAF 2, where my complaining starts. So FNAF 2 has a problem. A massive problem. The issue of multitasking. In the original FNAF 2, you have 3 main mechanics: the mask, the music box, and flashing the hallway. What made the original game so hard is that you could never do them at the same time. They were always separate tasks. Well here, because your cameras are always open, it means that the music box can pretty much always be held down, the only exception being when you're in your mask. This basically eliminates one core choice, the choice of whether to flash the hallway or wind the music box, because you can always do both. Now the only thing you need to worry about is the mask, which is the easiest of the 3, since it only applies when there is someone attacking, unlike the music box, which is a constant timer. This makes FNAF 2 the easiest in the entire collection, at least in my opinion. With constant access to the music box, you just keep that wound up and deal with threats as they come. This is even easier in flat mode since they have a dedicated button to winding the music box. This means that for the entire night, as long as you hold down that button, you will be completely invincible to the puppet, which is the only enemy that is sort of a problem. Gotta say though, really hurts your thumb after a while. I'm not really sure what could have been done about this. I think this is just a fundamental problem when porting FNAF 2 to VR. You can't have the cameras constantly cover your screen, so what do? Well, nothing, really. There just doesn't seem to be a way to make this work. That's not the only problem though, they changed a lot. Starting from the least egregious, they made the vent animatronics way easier. Instead of having to wait like 5 seconds for them to leave, now they'll just leave as soon as you put the mask on. This is fine, though it does make the night easier, which is a common theme you'll soon notice. Withered Foxy is also much easier. It might just be me, but he seems to take way less flashes than in FNAF 2. Maybe it's just because you have easier access to the lights, so it's never really a problem, but I don't know, he just never really feels that hard. Finally, and worst of all, with the exception of Withered Foxy, the Withers have been removed from FNAF 2 entirely. Except in the hard mode variant, but I plan to cover those at the end, so shh. But this is just a ridiculous choice. First off, the Withers are some of the most beloved characters, so getting rid of them is strange. Additionally, since there's now less threats in the night, that makes things yet again easier. FNAF 2 is just brain dead now. It went from intense decision making to spin around, hold down a button, and maybe sometimes put on a mask. It's hard to explain if you haven't played it, but I'm definitely not alone in feeling like this is way worse. It's not chaotic anymore, it puts me to sleep. Overall, one of the worst conversions in this game. It's just really underwhelming. I can't say it's the absolute worst though. That would go to our next game, FNAF 3. I can't give this a fair review. You wanna know why? I cheated to beat this. And not like some advanced techniques, no, I played it like an infant would play it. And I beat it in 0 deaths. Okay, so my strategy here was simple. Start the night, go to the top cam, and then spam audio lures, only moving when I need to reset audio. And that's it. No really, my entire strategy was to sit there and spam audio lures with no strategy whatsoever, and yet it was still enough to win. Now whether it's just because I got really lucky or whatever, I don't really care. This shouldn't be possible, in any game, no matter the circumstances. But yeah, because I cheated, I can't really give FNAF 3 a fair review. I mean, I have nothing to say about it because I literally did nothing while playing it. However, you know what I can do? Tell you what other people have said. The biggest and most common issue I hear is that while playing flat mode, on cam 7 he will sometimes just kill you. Like you can have your vent sealed, everything, he will just kill you anyway. This isn't some uncommon bug either. With how often YouTube commenters talk about it, you'd think it was a guarantee. I never personally saw it, but again, based on how much it seems to bother other people, I can't help but feel like this should have been caught in testing. Additionally, some people say that Springtrap can go through a blocked vent sometimes, just cuz. Was this part playtested at all? Not only is it brain dead, but it has multiple game-breaking bugs. How does that happen? The phantoms are also really easy to avoid in this one. Except for Phantom Foxy, I don't think a single one ever got me. Though to be fair, that's likely due to my strategy of doing absolutely nothing. That's all I really have to say. Overall, FNAF 3 is the worst in the collection. It's buggy and requires no actual strategy. Luckily, that means it can only go up from here, so let's move on to Dark Rooms. Dark Rooms is our first one that isn't just one gameplay style, it switches every level. This means that I'm gonna have to go over each one individually. Okay, bad example because I'm not gonna cover two at the same time. Plushtrap and Nightmare BB are practically identical, so I see no point in covering them separately. Both of their minigames are pretty much pulled exactly from their FNAF 4 minigame. Fun with Plushtrap or Nightmare BB. You sit on a dark screen and have to turn on your flashlight when they're on the X. If you wait too long or use your flashlight too much and run out of time, you lose. This minigame is whatever. It's not bad, but I've never been a big fan of it. It's just a bit boring. Once you know the trick with what sound cues mean what, then it loses all challenge, and when you don't know, then you're mostly just randomly guessing, which isn't very fun. While replaying Help Wanted, I mostly just skip these levels. They're no fun, even in VR. Up next is Plush Baby. Fuck Plush Babies! Okay, so this minigame is a bit infamous for being by far the hardest thing in this game. What you have to do is survive until 6 AM. Around the room, the Plush Babies will spawn, and you have to search for them and flash your flashlight at them to make them leave. There's also the flashlight battery, which recharges anytime the flashlight is off. This means that you can't just hold down the button while looking, you have to look in short bursts. None of that sounds too bad, but it's the execution that makes it so dreadful. Your flashlight battery just isn't enough, and the Plush Babies kill you too quickly. Even memorizing what spots the Plush Babies can appear in isn't enough. They still appear too quick, especially because there's 3 of them. By the time you found the other 2, the third is already halfway to killing you. It's ridiculous. It doesn't help that your flashlight reticle is so tiny you can barely see anything. This gets harder on flat mode, where even with max sensitivity, you can't move your flashlight at the same rate as someone just using their hand. The room is also just colorful enough to make it hard to see them. This minigame is actually kind of fun. Not that fun, mind you, it's too hard for that, but I don't know, it feels a lot more interactive than most of the other ones. Maybe that's the Gasig talking though, I don't know. Besides FNAF 1, this and one other minigame I'll discuss in a bit are the ones I replay on the rare occasions I'm in a Help Wanted mood. On to our last minigame in Dark Rooms, we have Funtime Foxy. See what makes talking about this game so hard? 99% of it is just taken from other games. This comes from the Funtime Foxy minigame in Sister Location, which you have to do a couple of times. It's kind of hard to explain, mainly because I'm not entirely sure how it works, but I'll try. Every few steps you take, you have to flash your beacon to make sure you're not walking directly into Funtime Foxy. If you walk into him, then you're dead, but also if you flash too much, you're dead too. This minigame takes a bit too long for my taste. You walk incredibly slowly and always have to stop whenever you flash, at least if you want to be safe. I do like how, since this game is more 3D, you can actually strategize to walk around Funtime Foxy, rather than being mostly confined to a 2D space. Overall, this minigame isn't terrible. I mean, it's practically entirely copied from a good minigame, so the amount of work that had to be done here was minimal. Don't worry, from here the games get more original, so I'll have more to say. Bad example because Parts and Service is next, and this is, in my opinion, the second worst section in the game, right behind FNAF 3. I just find it boring. I'm starting to see a pattern here. Parts and Service is all about following instructions. You listen to what hand unit says, and then do that. Thrilling. Yeah, I think you can see why I don't like this. I'll go over each minigame individually, but I'll keep my thoughts to a minimum so as to not bore you guys to death. First up is Bonnie, and his is whatever. Besides the funny, oh, take out Bonnie's left eye, but he doesn't mean your left, he means Bonnie's left. I don't really remember this minigame. I guess the part where you tune his guitar is cool, but besides that, whatever. For Chica's, this one is a lot more stressful. You definitely don't have to, but am I the only one that doused her in the chemi spray every like 5 seconds because I was paranoid, or is that just a me thing for being too wuss? Either way, this one I always remember for the part where you have to get Chica's cupcake, because for some reason I always really struggle with that part. He gets out of range so quickly, it's infuriating. Our next one, Freddy, I have close to nothing to say on him. I have to boop his nose to end the level. That's really about it. Foxy's up last, and I have the most to say about him by far. First off, one of the main gimmicks is that you can't take your eye off him for too long, or it'll kill you. Now, take this part with a grain of salt, since I didn't get it in VR or flat mode. I got it on the crappy mobile port of Help Wanted, but one time I was staring straight at him and he just disappeared from my screen as if I wasn't. Not that big a deal, again, it was the mobile port, so who cares, but man was it funny. Anyway, the other main gimmick of this level is these fuse things. You have to check the colors on Foxy and find the right one, then insert it while he's standing still. This can be hard, because sometimes I swear I get the right colors and I still die. I don't know though, maybe I'm just colorblind. In flat mode, sometimes you'll grab a fuse and it'll fling out a bunch of ones you didn't grab, which wouldn't be a problem, but if any of them hit the floor, then it's an automatic loss, which can get really annoying. This is another thing I'm surprised they didn't catch during playtesting, because I'm not alone. Tons of YouTube comments agree with me. You just kinda have to hope that they stay inside the drawer, which is not fun. Again though, flat mode exclusive problem, so take that as you will. And that was parts and service. Overall, very boring. What else do you want me to say? I guess I could mention how it's kinda cool to be doing maintenance on the original 4 like this, you know, shows what Fazbear Entertainment goes through, but yeah, that's it. Sorry. Up next is Vent Repair, which comes with our shortest amount of minigames at only 2. First up is Mangle. This one goes just very slightly hard. Since you have everything available to you at once, it means that speedrunning this is possible and encouraged, which is, you know, actually fun. How the level works is that Mangle will approach from one of the vents you have around you. All you have to do is look at him and she'll retreat. This has the issue of plush babies where even with max sensitivity, you're only able to check vents so fast, while in VR it's only restricted to how fast you're willing to move your head. Luckily though, if you're speedrunning, you can just ignore Mangle altogether. I like this, as no one on the first playthrough is realistically going to solve it that fast, but it sort of gets rid of enemies on repeat playthroughs. Not actually, but it's almost like a rite of passage. Like, hey, you beat it, now come back and beat it faster. Fast enough to just ignore everything else. This is probably the best minigame in all of Help Wanted. It's very addicting to play and try to go for a new best time on. That just means our other vent repair is lackluster though. This one is just too long, man. It starts with this wire section, where you have to look where each wire connects and hit that corresponding button. This part is fine, I guess, though a bit uninteresting. The fact that you do the same thing 3 times in a row almost feels like they were running out of ideas. Anyway, going down the elevator some more, we get to the gear section, which sucks. I can't even explain why, I just hate it. You have to place and remove and replace gears and it just hurts me to think about. I just looked up a video of someone doing it and memorized that. I could not be bothered to actually figure it out. Going even further down, we get to this pipe section. You can flip each individual pipe and the entire thing, and you have to connect the start and end. This part is fine with one pretty major issue. I'm not entirely sure you can die. Seriously, it took me forever and I was just completely fine. Don't take my word for it, I'm sure it's probably possible to die during this part, but if it is, then they should definitely make it faster. I was playing incredibly poorly and still made it out with no deaths. Definitely the worst of the 2 vent repairs. It's too long, and again, the gear segment just sucks. Now that we're done here, it's time to move on to our final section, Night Terrors. This is the part of the game based on FNAF 4, which is my least favorite FNAF game ever. I wonder if I'll like these segment. No, the answer is no. Starting off with Funtime Freddy, this is yet another one I just can't give a fair review to because I once again cheated to beat it. I think you're supposed to do the FNAF 4 thing of going up to doors and listening for breathing, but I for the life of me couldn't be bothered to do that. I instead just did the DJ Stir strat of holding a door closed every hour, and ended up beating it immediately. Yet another time where I questioned the playtesters of this game if it's possible to break it this easily. Next up is Nightmare On, who I might actually have the least to say about in the entire game. The tentacles are cool? I don't know, man, I'm so tired. It's like 4 AM as I write this, I need to go to bed. Next is Circus Baby, which is yet another contender for worst minigame in the collection. You sit still in a closet and wait for Circus Baby to see you. Once she sees you, you have to close the closet. But if you keep the closet closed too long, then the plush babies will kill you. This one is both very boring and really easy. Boring because of the lack of gameplay. I mean, for 90% of it, I'm just standing still, and the other 10% I'm just holding a door closed. And really easy because as long as you know generally how long you can keep the closet shut, then it's no problem. It's not like it progresses throughout the night. As long as you can do it once, you can do it as many times as the game requires. Definitely the worst of Night Terrors, which isn't great because so far Night Terrors has sucked in general. Up last for our normal minigames, we have Nightmare Fredbear. I'm gonna be honest, I think it's just pure luck I beat this one. I just switched doors and closed them and only stopped when I heard a laugh. You're actually supposed to listen to footsteps to track what side he's on, but I again could not be bothered to. I'm not gonna hold it against this minigame since unlike things like FNAF 3 and Funtime Freddy, this isn't some well-documented thing you can do. It seems like I just got insanely lucky, which is funny to me. You know what I will hold against this night? More glitches. This one happens when he laughs and goes to your closet. Sometimes you can go up, shut the closet, and just die anyway. This seems to be mostly exclusive to flat mode, much like most of the glitches I've discussed. Again, making me question who bothered to playtest this version of the game. Besides that, there's no real differences in flat mode. And there we go. Every minigame discussed, right? Well, no. See, flipping this switch in the main lobby brings you to the hard mode variants, which affect almost every single level in the entire game, which now means I have to go over them again. Here we go. Up first is FNAF 1 Night 5. The only notable change is the fact that sometimes your doors will randomly flip up and down. I'm not sure if this is random or maybe it was removed in flat mode, but through all my attempts, I never had the doors do this once. I'm not entirely sure what happened here, but I'll take it, because that gimmick seems annoying as hell, since it'll sometimes just kill you for no good reason. Some people consider this the hardest minigame in the entire collection, which I don't know if I'd go that far, but it did take me a decent amount of attempts to finally beat. You know what didn't take me a decent amount of attempts? FNAF 2. Yep, FNAF 2 is still just as easy. No notes here, they just made everyone harder and made a crazy color scheme, is what I would have said if I was reviewing this at release. See, added in an update was a brand new hard mode edition called Wizards. That's right, they finally added the Wizards back in. Their main gimmick is that instead of approaching the office, they'll sometimes just randomly teleport in. This gimmick is fine, I guess, though really easy to deal with in flat mode since all you have to do is hit a button when they appear. Funnily enough, because this was added in an update, it means that this is not required to beat the game. Seriously, you can beat every minigame except this one and still unlock Pizza Party just fine. I guess that means Wizards is just an extra side thing? I don't know. Up next is FNAF 3, which has no changes of note. Literally, the place is on fire, and apparently according to YouTube comments, Springtrap teleports to kill you like every time now. Besides that, it's business as usual. Nightmare BB and PLUSHBABY are not really changed. Genuinely, I think the only change is the balloons in Nightmare BB stage, and maybe you have less time to react. Besides that, it's literally identical. You know what isn't identical though? Plush babies. For hard mode, they decided, you know what, the room was too easy to see last time, let's just fill it with a bunch of fake plush babies. Luckily to compensate, they made your flashlight reticle bigger, so now it's like you put a band-aid on your stab wound. This took me forever to complete, and I felt like God when I did. I still haven't replayed it. I beat it once and that was it. Finally, for Dark Rooms is Funtime Foxy, who is now Lolbit. This one's kinda cool, they added a bunch of stationary enemies to make traversal way harder. Overall, probably the most creative hard mode variant, and actually makes it pretty intense. Gold star, Steel Wool, you earned it. Next is Parts and Service, which is identical, save for the color scheme. I guess it makes sense, it'd be hard to make it harder without adding new instructions, but still, it's a bit disappointing. I do want to shout out how the Freddy level looks. I think it's really sick looking, but besides that, yeah, no, I got nothing. Outblast is Vent Repair. Mangle is still the same, meaning you can still speedrun it the exact same way. The only difference is now there's 2 Mangles, but again, I finished it in 20 seconds, that doesn't matter. The last Vent Repair is actually cool. They made the entire thing upside down. Assuming you're playing in VR, and flat mode it's right side up. Why? Literally, that's the only thing that makes this level different, and they just removed it. What's the point? Is it too hard to get upside down working in flat mode or something? Seriously, no clue what went wrong here, but clearly something catastrophic happened behind the scenes. Now, some of you may have heard me say finally with Vent Repair and got confused. I mean, what about the hard mode variations of Night Terrors? Well, that's the thing, there just isn't any. Which I guess makes sense. I mean, what would you even do for a hard mode variation of Circus Baby? It'd just be the same thing again, which I guess this game isn't past doing, but whatever. No, instead of Night Terrors hard mode, when you clear every other minigame, you unlock Pizza Party, which is just a maze. A maze with no clear answer. So it's just trial and error. I'm gonna be real, I just looked up the answer to this one. I did not care to die over and over until I magically found the right solution. And yeah, that's really it. You know, except for lore. Oh god, do I have to? It's a VR game. Like in universe, it's a VR game that Fazbear Entertainment made about the rumors of Fazbears. There's also this entity that's stuck in the game, and by 100%ing the game, you put it back together and let it escape. There, now am I done? What do you mean I have to talk about the collectibles? You know what? No, I'm cutting this review off there. Those were my full thoughts on Help Wanted and its flat mode. Like I said, in my opinion, it's the worst FNAF game besides FNAF 4. That's partly because of how unoriginal it is. Over half of the game is just do this thing you've done before but in VR, which is not only lame but becomes even lamer in flat mode, since now it's just worse versions of games you've played before without a cool new way to play it to hide it. I think people are too forgiving of this game simply because it's in VR. Like that automatically gives it a pass to be one of the least creative and least fun FNAF games because, oh, it's unique. Well, I don't swing that way. I take gameplay into consideration first, and that's why Help Wanted, especially its buggy, glitch-ridden flat mode, is the worst FNAF game in the entire series. Again, except FNAF 4, but don't even worry about that. That's about it. If you feel like I was wrong about any of these, please comment and let me know. As long as you keep it civil, I would love to discuss this game with more people. As it is now, I just don't see the appeal. But I want to. So yeah, comment down below if you disagreed on anything. Until next time, I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you soon. Bye! Couldn't really find a place to work this into the main video, but look at these jump scares. They're so funny looking outside of VR. Like, what?